Today, I'm going to dive into the anxious-avoidant dynamic in relationships, and we're going to find out if this is a match made in heaven or hell. Let's dive in. Now, this attachment style is very close to my own heart because this is what my body prefers. I am the poster boy of avoidance. I used to be, I should say. I've been working on it a lot over the last 15 years, and over the last 5 years, I've actually started seeing a lot of shifts happen from isolating, avoiding, shutting down to connecting, being vulnerable, and opening up when I really want to run away. What I want to do is read some things I've been writing or posting about this and then break some pieces down for you. And I'll preface this by saying that I am hosting an Embodied Relationship group. It's a 6-month group that runs from October to March. I think it's 6 months. And it starts on October 9th. And right now, until August 31st, you can get 10% off the group if you type in the discount code below and you go to the website and type that in at checkout. If you're seeing this or hearing this after the 31st, you can still register. You're just not going to get the early discount code. So let's dive in. I'm going to start with a post I wrote titled, "Your partner isn't avoidant, they are overwhelmed," because this is how I understand attachment style through the somatic lens. Labeling someone through attachment theory traps them into an identity and characterizes them based on their behavior. Let's actually understand their behavior. People who are avoidant are simply people whose bodies are easily overwhelmed from connection, eye contact, and even touch. Their avoidant tendencies are actually how they self-regulate by lessening the charge that comes from connection and intimacy. The only issue with this is that people are often unconscious of it. People who have avoidant tendencies over-identify with being independent, self-sufficient, and not needing anyone at all. They even take pride in it. I know I did. What people rarely tell you about avoidant types is this: we've endured considerable amounts of relational trauma, and being needed, wanted, or even touched can trigger it up in our bodies again. That doesn't give us an excuse, but that's why it exists. Sexual trauma, autism, different neurodivergencies, and growing up with parents or family members who depended on us are just some of the causes for the avoidant tendency. In short, our bodies get quickly overwhelmed by need, closeness, and intimacy with others. One way to deal with this is not to try to change someone who is avoidant. Instead, you have to learn the person's body you're seeking connection with. We need to make the overwhelm more conscious and embodied so the avoidant type doesn't suddenly retreat, reject, or shut you out. Now, this part's important for me. I'm going to pause right here. This can be read as if it's your responsibility to understand your avoidant partner and just deal with it. No. This also can sound like you're supposed to walk on eggshells in order to not be rejected. Nope. Those are anxious attachment style expressions. Fawning, walking on eggshells, doing anything to keep this person happy and essentially not overwhelmed so they don't run away and reject you. That's not a relationship. That's actually coddling and enabling someone's avoidant patterns and behavior. The first thing to understand, and the reason why I wrote one way to deal with this is not to try to change someone who is avoidant, is when you are coming at someone who's already avoidant with these demands of connection, you're going to push them away because they're already overwhelmed by connection itself. Now, the demand for connection, or the ultimatum that I need connection or else, is really, really big, and you're not going to get much transformation or connection from that place. I have found way more success in my own marriage and in many people I've helped over the years. Instead of trying to change the avoidant person, understand what the roots of their avoidant attachment style are. And the root, somatically speaking, for many different reasons, is that the avoidant attachment person's body, their nervous system, gets really easily and quickly overwhelmed by intimacy and connection and being seen. It's a big, big part of the avoidant attachment style person's experience. Being seen, being in someone's gaze, really being witnessed can be so overwhelming that their flight response kicks in and they just want to take off. It can also be overwhelming and the fight response takes in. They get kind of mean and nasty and cold and passive. I've done all these things in my life because I didn't understand that my nervous system was overwhelmed from connection. Now, I'm going to give you a little history, a little case study from my own life that helps you understand how this kind of thing can develop. When I was growing up, between the 5th grade and the 7th grade, I experienced 3 accounts of sexual assault. I also experienced some molestation in addition in between that, and I was molested when I was 5. But this 5th to 7th grade, these experiences were really, really traumatic for me because I had to go to school the next day and see those people who did it and keep the secret. And for me, growing up as a bisexual kid who was closeted bisexual, I was terrified people were going to find out that I was a homosexual or bisexual. So making eye contact, seeing them, having a connection with them the next day felt forbidden, felt terribly threatening and terrifying. And then I had these experiences with my friends where we would kind of experiment, but in ways that were really unconscious. We would pretend to be sleeping, or we would do it without talking. And the next morning, we wouldn't say a word of it. These particular friends happened to be straight. They were heterosexual. And so they were, I guess, experimenting with me, who was bisexual and intersex, so I had breasts. I know there's a lot I'm throwing at you, but it's important to understand because this turned into a repetitive pattern for me of not trusting connection, of I can be touched, I can see you in this kind of sideways, dissociated, unconscious way, but then to consciously connect to you is forbidden. And that was a big part of my developmental experience. In addition to also being a very mature child who parented a lot of the adults in my life growing up. So all of this accumulated into me feeling very overwhelmed and overly needed and burdened and responsible by someone just wanting to simply connect to me. Connection felt like somebody wanted something from me rather than just wanting to be with me. And it's taken me many years to consciously uncouple that from my body. And why I share this is it's important to know I don't suggest anyone tries to change or understand their avoidant attached style partner or lover or friend. What I do suggest is that you make it aware to yourself, conscious that that's what they're doing, and then ask them if they have any interest to work on it with you and with themselves, because you cannot be the one that changes them and you will not be the one to change them. They have to really want it. And I hit a point through embodiment, by the way, not before somatics, but after, where I didn't like the feeling of being avoidant anymore. I could feel these parts in me, one that really wanted connection, that really wanted love, that really wanted like sober intimacy and eye contact. And I could feel another part of me that would clench against it and retreat and be really overwhelmed with a sense of pressure and angst. These were very incongruent. These really big parts inside of me pressing together, and it felt uncomfortable, and I just didn't want it as my experience anymore. So for the last 10 years, I've been consciously working on my avoidant attachment style, what I like to call my avoidant habits. Because when we call it an attachment style, or I even say I'm avoidant or I'm the avoidant type, it casts me as avoidant, and I can actually feel identified with that term like I was writing about. I used to have so much pride in not needing anyone, in loving being alone, in being disgusted by love. And who needs co-regulation when all you need is self-regulation? And then through time and maturing, I learned that's just not true. I actually deeply love and want connection. I just don't trust it, and I don't know how to let connection move through my body without overwhelming my body. This is particularly true for people with autism and neurodivergence. The brain can be a little inflamed, and the nervous system can be highly reactive. So just being touched or spoken to a certain way can be super overwhelming for the body. And in that overwhelm, the body retreats. It flights or fights to get rid of the person. And this can come off off as avoidant or even create avoidant habits. But these are just habits. They're habits from strategies we clung to through our developmental years to find safety in relationships that had a lot of strange, traumatic things going on in them. And as adults, it's what we lean on because it's what we know and it has worked before. We're here, we survived. But most of us don't need our avoidant strategies anymore. They're completely outdated. However, and I'm going to read my next post, we, avoidant people, become magnets for anxious attachment type people because we prove to them that they need to grasp and they prove to us that we need to run away. So these habits are outdated, yet they come up in these relational dynamics all the time and we trigger them in each other. So I'm going to read this one. The anxiously attached person is one who lives in a body that doesn't feel safe to them, and they find it quite hard to feel peace with themselves. This nearly always results in addiction of some kind, whether it be to drugs, to work, or to people and relationships. When you spend your life seeking safety outside of yourself, and then you find an actual person you feel safe with, your body doesn't know how to build more safety. It gets more desperate. This is because finding a person who makes us feel safe further highlights how unsafe we feel without them. And the contrast, which didn't exist before finding them, is enough to cause more anxiety in their absence. What's unfortunate is this. Most people with anxious attachment styles are highly attracted to people with avoidant attachment styles because they appear secure and independent, like I was saying earlier, which is what the anxious individual is seeking for themselves. But guess what, babies? This is just false advertisement. Take it from me. I was avoidant for most of my life, and I found great peace and safety in isolation and absolute terror and stress in being needed, which is not a secure place to be in. Being pursued, even being wanted by others was terrifying for me. So one way this showed itself was through fawning. Fawning mechanisms, which people misunderstand as love bombing, is a common strategy for those who are avoidant because it temporarily soothes the anxious person they're with and also sends these mixed signals. I want you so much and I want nothing to do with you. Because fawning isn't real. It's mimicking connection. It's mimicking relating. So I fawn to appease you, but I don't actually have the capacity to sustain what it is I'm doing to appease you. Whether it's sex, eye gazing, going on a date, talking deeply, it's not authentic. It's performative to make you feel better. So this huge back and forth seesaw is created of I'm so deeply connected to you and bam, I want nothing to do with you. That's hard on both people. This back and forth isn't about the worth or appeal of the other partner. It's about the avoidant person's low capacity for sustained connection. They can only handle short bursts of connection, and then, when it's too long or too deep, must retreat to recover. Literally recover from the stress that connection creates because of these overcouplings I'm talking about. This back and forth is a drug for an anxiously attached person. One moment they're being soothed by a soul connection, and the next it is being ripped away from them. How do you navigate this? How do we get through this? The anxious person must find safety in themselves and others outside the relationship. What makes us codependent is we put all of our eggs in one basket. We expect one person to meet all the needs that an entire village once met, even a couple generations ago for our ancestors. It's impossible. But when you have anxious attachment, there's so much more riding on it because the other actually helps your body regulate, helps you sleep at night, helps you not binge eat, helps you settle into yourself, even take care of yourself. And then when this person leaves you or you have an argument or they go away for vacation or they die, which happens eventually, you fall apart because you haven't learned how to sustain that connection yourself. So when I have these two people, and my wife and I are these two people, so we've gotten a lot of practice over the years, 15 years of practice, might I add. When you have these two people understanding this through a somatic lens, a couple amazing things happen. One, we stop identifying with this. We see it as a habit that's outdated, but currently being triggered by the dynamic that you have in the relationship. Two, because it's a habit and it's not who you are, and the nervous system is very flexible, we can learn new practices and techniques to develop out of these habits. For the avoidant person, that looks like learning how to embody your stress, not project your stress onto your partner saying they're doing something that's making you stay away from them, not fawn from a stressful body, but come back to yourself and hold your stressful body and get a sense of what it needs and how to move it so you don't get overwhelmed by connection. And then your partner can actually prove to you over time that they can handle the stress that comes up in you. And it becomes a way to connect to each other rather than an excuse or a purpose or a reason to disconnect and isolate and hide. Now, if you have an anxious or an avoidant attachment style person doing that work and simultaneously have someone with anxious attachment learning how to find safety in themselves and make really meaningful connections elsewhere in addition to their primary partner, you have two people who are working on finding safety in their bodies through these two different ways. So when they're together, they trigger each other less, which means they don't trigger up the attachment style habits as much as they did before. So the anxious attachment style person, for example, might not talk as fast or as loud or burst into the room telling you everything that's wrong with the relationship or what they need. They might instead, through this somatic language, learn how to say, there's a lot coming up for me. I love you. I need to know when you have capacity so we can sit together and talk. The avoidant person can know, this terrifies me. What do I need? I need a pillow. I need to make sure I've eaten some dinner or a good balancing snack first. I need to know I have some time. I have to know I got some good sleep. Okay, let's meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'm going to wake up, have some breakfast, work out, take the kids to school, and then I can sit down at 10 a.m. with you and let's have a good hour to connect. The avoidant person has said their needs. I need to do this to have capacity to connect with you. And the anxious attachment style person gets to say, thank goodness I'm being prioritized. They care. It's not going to happen now. It's going to happen tomorrow at 10. And from now and 10 a.m., this person's job is to be with themselves, is to dance, to listen to music they love, to call a friend, to go for a walk, to lay in bed and hold themselves or write in their journal, to self-regulate and to connect to self and co-regulate with others in the meantime. So they're not grasping on this person. This match is a total match made in hell when they're triggering each other's attachment styles. But when you have somatic techniques and language, it becomes a bond or a match made in heaven, because now you're working together in real time with your triggers to undo all these habits that have set in and these patterns that feel concrete, that feel like it's who you are. I hope this is helpful for those of you listening. I'm fascinated with this because I've been practicing it for 15 years, and my recovery for developing out of avoidance strategies has excelled. It's accelerated in the last 5 years, the deeper I've gone into my embodiment and somatic practices. And I'm lucky to have an incredible partner that's on board with this language and dives in with me. And we've been using our triggers and our stressors and even our past experiences with each other as gold, as the catalyst of sensation that would normally propel us into these attachment habits and instead propel us into connecting now, into hugging, into not even talking and processing problems, but just holding each other through these patterns for a few minutes and feeling the body get soft and then connect from the soft place instead of connecting from the urgent tense place, which tends to just trigger our attachment wounds and these habits and styles. So like I said earlier, I'm doing a 6-month group that begins on Thursday, October 9th. It's called Embodied Relationships. I'm spending an entire month on attachment theory through a somatic lens and through a trauma-informed lens, much like the one I laid out here. I didn't talk about secure attachment. I didn't talk about disorganized. I might on the podcast in the next few weeks. I might not, but I will a lot in the 6-month group. So check out the link. It's in the episode details. If you're seeing this early enough, you can get the 10% code and apply that to get 10% off the whole program. If you're seeing this from September on, you cannot get the code, so you can't get the discount, but you can still register and be part of this amazing 6-month program that I am super excited to dive into. I will say that some people think they have to be partnered to do this. That is not true. The last one I did, which was 3 years ago, I had a handful of people who were freshly divorced and people who were single who were about to start dating but wanted to do this inner work first. So all are welcome. Let me know your questions in the comments. If you're listening to the podcast, hop on over to YouTube and you can join the discussion. I'll see you soon. Thank you for watching today's episode. Please like and subscribe if you found it useful, and let me know in the comments what you want me to cover next. I have developed a 4-week self-paced course that takes 18 years of my personal and professional experience and puts it into one place where you can easily and quickly learn the foundations of recovering from stress and trauma. How does the food you eat affect your stress levels? How do the relationships in your life create stress or peace? How does the relationship you have with your body allow you to feel happier and more settled? I will cover all this and so much more in this 4-week self-paced course. And the best part, it's self-paced. You don't have to sign up at a certain date or finish it at a certain time. It's yours for life, and it's waiting there for you when you're ready to finish it. Throughout this course, I'll be teaching you philosophies and practices that combine my 3 favorite modalities: somatic experiencing, embodied parts work, and nutrition. For more information on this course, click on the link in my episode details.